So now we've talked about bringing in 3 different types of files into InDesign. We've talked about photographs, we've talked about Photoshop files, and we've talked about bringing in different types of vectors into InDesign. My guess is that the majority of the time, these will be the only 3 files that you'll actually need to bring into InDesign. So before we wrap things up for this lesson, I'm just going to talk about a few other tips and tricks that you might need while making your book. So the first thing that you might have questions about, or at least I did when I was doing this project, is creating clipping masks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit our type tool and I'm just going to write mask me. And then I'm going to make this a little bit bigger just for the sake of this example. And then I'm just going to create a rectangle that's pretty thin, so we can just create a clipping mask around the center of this text. So normally when we're creating a clipping mask in Illustrator, what we would do is we would put the box over the text, we would select both, and then we would create a clipping mask within these options. Obviously that option is not here. So what you do in InDesign is you would actually select the type or whatever you're putting into the mask, copy it or Command C, hit the thing that you want to use as the mask, and hit paste into. The mechanics are a little bit different than in Illustrator, so you might have to move things around a little bit and figure things out. But in general, this is how you do it. You can change the color of the actual box so then it's transparent and looks more like a mask. You can change the size of the box so you can mask more or less. You can move things around, etc., etc. This is definitely a lot more complicated than doing it in Illustrator, but for simple masks, this works perfectly fine. Another tool that I wanted to talk about now that you guys are getting into integrating images and type is this one over here. And this is the rectangle frame tool, or you can hit F on the keyboard for the shortcut. So what this actually does is that it creates kind of like a template for your book. So if we click and drag this just like we would with like the rectangle tool, it actually creates this empty box with an X inside of it. So the majority of the time, people will use this to block out where they would put images into their book. So for example, let's use this grid properly. We would be able to start working on our layouts here. So for example, let's just resize this a little bit larger, and I'm going to take this out real quick. We would be able to start working on a layout by using elements like this, by using the rectangle frame tool to block out where we would put images on our grid. I'm just going to move this off real quick so then we can work with this side. For example, if we were planning to put that image in, but we didn't have the image yet, we could create a box that big, knowing that we would put something here eventually. And then working on this, we can also see maybe we actually want 2 images next to each other, and we could resize these to be exactly where we wanted it to be. And then also we could create type boxes where we think that we want type. And the way that we usually lay out type is filling these with placeholder text. And then basically we can start working on our different layouts here. Maybe we want this a little bit more diagonal. Maybe we want more text down here, and maybe it's thinner or something. Either way, this is just a great way to start working on your layouts, even though maybe you don't have all the elements ready for it. For example, if you actually figure out your layout, and let's just say this is the layout that you want to use, something you can do is you can go back to your Finder folder, and you can actually drag images into these frames and then adjust the images to fit. You'll notice that this image is much bigger than the actual frame, so what we can do is hit our handy dandy fill frame proportionally here, so then it fits in like this, and then we can adjust it slightly to be exactly where we want it to be. And the same thing goes for these. We can choose other images that we want to use within these, and then hit this so then it actually fits within the image, and then adjust it to wherever we want it to be. And then same thing goes with the text. You would edit this to have whatever copy you actually have or whatever you're writing, and then that's just a quick and simple way to create a layout. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm actually going to go to a new spread, and I'm just going to take all of these elements off again. And this time we're actually going to open up our layers tab. So we haven't really talked about layers in InDesign yet. The same layers exist on every single page of the book. So for example, since we're in layer 2 right now, if I created a background color over here, so you'll see this is on layer 2. If I copy this and go to the next page and then paste it on layer 2 again, if on this page I actually moved layer 2 on top of layer 1, the same thing will happen here. So basically, if you change the order of your layers on a different page, it will affect all the pages in the book. Another thing that you can do is, I'm just going to undo this so then the rectangle actually is on layer 2 again. You'll notice that our pagination from our master pages are on layer 1, and to prove that, we'll go over to pages and into our A master. These pagination are on layer 1 here. So let's just say within our design, within these pages, we actually don't want the pagination above this blue background, but we need it to be above other backgrounds so we can't just, swap the layers. So what you actually can do for instances like this is, I'm going to select both of these pages, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to hit override all master page elements. So after clicking that, these are actually editable, unlike before when they were master page elements. And finally, I wanted to end this lesson with one more thing about type that I will leave as a little bit of homework for you guys. So when creating books, things are all about systems and building these systems that you can use throughout your book. To make this easier, InDesign has things called character styles and paragraph styles to help you really create large changes within your book without having to go through every single page and adjusting things like point size or leading on every single page. So I'm just going to briefly introduce this, but I think it would be really great if you guys research this a little bit on your own. So I have them preset over here. So I already have these preset over here, and you'll see that here is the paragraph, and these are just the normal sort of like type things that we always use, character. But what I'm talking about here is the paragraph styles and the character styles. So the place that you find these actually are going to the type tab and then hitting character and paragraph styles. So you can open them up here. So what you can do with these is that you can actually create sort of these templates for type within your book. So I'm just going to give a really brief demo of this, but you guys should really do research on this because it will save you hours and hours of time when you create more complex books. So I'm really just going to show you character styles. Paragraph styles is kind of the same mechanic, but you just do it for paragraphs instead of just single line text. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create 2 boxes of type. So what we can do is we can click on this original style, and we're just going to create a new style here in character styles. And I'm just going to double click this so we can see all of these options. So I'm just going to do this headline style. And you can name this whatever you want. Normally, I name these actually with coding terminology, so H1, H2, P1, P2, that kind of thing. But you don't have to do that at all. Create the system that you find the most useful as normal. So you see over here under style settings, there's none plus meta plus black plus size 72 point. Within all of these folders, you can choose different things to actually save within these character styles. So for example, if along with the size, we actually really care about the leading, so we're going to hit 72 leading over here. It's also important to us that it's actually the italic, not the regular, and then save, you can save all these different things. We can hit OK, and it'll change it to be exactly what that is. So now that we have this saved as our headline style, if we had another page with the same headline that we wanted to be in the same style, but wasn't under that same style right now, we could hit headline style over here and it'll copy that same style. So this is good and all, but you would still have to go through every single page and hit this one time. But if when you are creating all the type, when you created your system, you already assigned all of these headlines to headline style, then when we make any changes, we can make them to all of them together. So for example, let's just say instead of the italic, we want to go back to the Roman. Instead of italic, we wanted to go back to the regular. We could hit headline style again. Let's just hit preview for ease of viewing. And then font style, let's go back to regular. Hit OK. And now every single text with that style has changed together. So that is a brief preview of what character styles can do. Obviously, there is so much more you can do with them. And Paragraph does the same thing, but with the entire paragraph instead of just specific lines of text. So I would really recommend you guys do a little bit of homework on this. Google it, look it up on YouTube, see what you can do with these paragraph and character styles, and try to implement them into your books if you can. My guess is that a lot of your books will not have as much type as, your traditional book, so maybe you won't find a place to use these. I did not use these when I was in my first year. In fact, I really didn't even know about them until the second semester. So this is sort of like your little extra credit homework, but you're not actually getting any credit. So I'm sorry about that. My hope always is that you guys are more prepared than I was when I was going through CalArts, because I find that the more information you have in the early years of your schooling, the better off you'll be in the later years. So as usual, we're going to end this video by hitting save. I just hit Command S and did a save. And I hope that you guys are doing well with the book project. I know it's a little bit daunting to create a whole book, but once again, really use the elements that you've already created to create less work for yourself. Our next lesson is going to be mostly about wrapping up this project and preparing for print and exporting. So it's probably going to be a pretty short one. I hope that you guys do a lot of exploring in InDesign. There's obviously a lot that I didn't talk about, but I hope I gave you guys at least the skeleton of how to get through this project. So I hope you guys stay safe and healthy. I hope you guys have a really good week, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson, our final lesson.